Hey, this is Skylar Hamilton with Freedom or Bust and freedomorbust.net, here to make a quick video on the basics of the Declaration of Independence. First off, with any document, to see its purpose, you look to the Preamble, and it says that not only is it to declare independence, but to declare to the world why they're declaring independence, and assume the station that the laws of nature and the laws of nature's God entitle them to. The Declaration of Independence answers the questions of why and what as far as governments are concerned. Why they exist and what their purpose is. Their attempt at fulfilling a government in harmony with these principles, or answering the question of how, was in the U.S. Constitution and the constitutions of the several states. Now, in this document, it outlines a statement of rights, the rights of mankind. It says that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that it's natural to be understood, that it's easily verified by outside observation and inward contemplation, that all men are created equal, that you're born into this life as equals and you leave this life as equals, that rights are equal to everyone, that they are endowed by their Creator, that the source of rights is God, with certain unalienable rights, rights that even with your own permission you cannot transfer or sell or rid yourself of. Now, it's important to note that you don't have rights because you're a woman or because you're gay or because you're African American or whatever. No, there's only these fundamental rights that are equal to every person. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Among these, not only these. And, you know, even Richard Henry Lee in the day said, oh, Jefferson just copied that from Locke, but notice the difference. He did not say life, liberty, and property. He said pursuit of happiness. And he was right when you think about it. No one is born with some sort of entitlement to property. They have the right to honestly acquire property if they choose to do so. But if they choose to live, say, an ascetic life that doesn't involve any property or whatever, then so be it. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. That to protect and secure these rights, that is what government's whole function is. Deriving their just powers, not just powers, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And remember, you cannot delegate an item of authority to a government that you as an individual cannot have. They cannot derive a power that doesn't exist with individual people. So you have to ask yourself, what can I, in a state of nature, legitimately do in harmony with the concept of justice? Remember, you cannot give an item of authority to government that you yourself do not legitimately have. As Ezra Taft Benson explained, the collective action or government action is limited to those spheres in which the individual citizen has the right to act. There's no such thing as some sort of collective right outside of the individual right. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. They understood that when a government is hindering, is infringing on the exercise of your rights, your unalienable rights, it is your right to alter it or to abolish it and institute a new government that isn't tyrannical. Now later he points out, mankind are more disposed to suffer evil than to right themselves. You know, we tend to just deal with problems instead of correct them. But he says, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it's not only your right to overthrow a tyrannical government, it is your duty to throw off such government and to provide a new government instituted to protect those rights, to be in harmony with its entire purpose. Why is there also a duty? Well, because when your agents in government are infringing on people's rights, it's a criminal act towards them. They're doing it in your name, and therefore you don't just have a right to throw off tyrannical government, you have a duty to throw off tyrannical government. Now, after outlining in a beautiful poetic way the entire purpose of government, they list specific examples of the British government infringing and rejecting its entire purpose for existing. Now, think of how ridiculous it would have been if they saw rights as somehow coming from the British Constitution, which was unwritten, by the way. How ridiculous it would be to stand up to the British government and rejecting the British Constitution if that was the source of their rights. That's why they saw it as coming from God, as coming from nature. They saw this in nature. Therefore, they could reject this government, and they actually said, we are declaring independence from Britain and declaring dependence on God. Listen to this. They said, and for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. They realized they could not do this alone, and that they may lose. And every single one of those 56 men that signed this document understood that it was treason. They were to be hung and quartered. And they did it. Now, it's interesting to note that the main influences on Jefferson in the writing of this would be George Mason in the state of Virginia, his Virginia Declaration of Rights, and also a fellow delegate at the Second Continental Congress, Samuel Adams, and his work in Massachusetts. And you can see this if you compare the Virginia Declaration of Rights and the original rough draft of the Declaration of Independence. You'll see the similarities. In the original rough draft, for instance, he says inherent and inalienable, and you'll see the same wording in Section 1 of the Virginia Declaration of Rights. Now, there were some changes that were made, and it's interesting to find those, but I would challenge all of you to look at the list of grievances. Jefferson was compiling grievances for a couple years. In fact, you can find many of them in the Virginia Constitution. But ask yourself, what specific fundamental right is being violated by each grievance that is listed? And ask yourself, how does this apply now? What is your list of grievances? Are there any? And remember, this isn't a declaration of just some Confederate government, the purpose of a Confederate government. This is the purpose of government at any level, local, state. Remember, the federal government didn't even exist at this point. Okay, so we encourage you to share this video, read the Declaration of Independence, and comment under this video, and comment on Facebook or wherever, in your journal at home. What specific rights were being violated by the British government? And what was their attempt to alleviate it, whether in the Constitution of whatever state that you live in, or the U.S. Constitution itself? Remember, if you really understand these principles, you'll understand that the Bill of Rights, the Virginia Declaration of Rights, or whatever Bill of Rights there exists out there, did not give you any rights. That they're merely paper guarantees of pre-existent rights, of rights that came to you by virtue of your humanity. They are endowments from God Himself. And I want all of you, especially in this time when we live in a situation where the government itself is acting more similar to the British government we seceded from than the government originally instituted. Ask yourself how you can pledge your life, your fortune, and your sacred honor to this holy cause of liberty. Think about it. Think about it. Because ultimately, it's entirely up to us.